Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and we're back with director, choreographer Rick Sparks, who was born in Santa Monica, attended Canoga High School, and as he said, was kicked out of the Academy of Fine Arts. Rick,
Yeah.
what did you do after you were kicked out?
Oh man, you had to tell that story, didn't you?
I'm sorry, you
Wait,
brought it
after
up.
or to get kicked out?
Both. That's a good idea.
No, it was actually the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in
Oh,
Pasadena.
dramatic arts.
Yeah,
Oh.
and well, so they say. And
So
there
you
was a
wanted to be an
clause-
actor then?
Always. I come from a theatrical family.
Ah, so that was
So it was a natural progression, pretty much. My grandfather, John Merton, excuse me, was an actor out of New York and brought all 6 kids to the West Coast, and everybody went into the business.
And
But
he,
they
go on,
I was just
because
going to say
you
they
have-
found out that I was doing 2 shows outside of school, and we had to sign a clause, which makes sense in a way. They want to be able to construct the teaching so that you don't get any bad outside influences while you're a student.
Is that
in acting
really true?
school.
They didn't want you to be acting on stage?
Exactly, to be picking up bad habits. They wanted to be able to hold a student for 2 to 3 years, teach them what they thought that was the proper way before going out into the world and picking up bad. And it makes sense in theory. I was just anxious.
But do you think, I'm asking you now that
Yeah.
you've been out in the world,
In
do you
retrospect?
think it was a good idea to keep you in school like
For
that?
me,
or any
to-
student?
For some students, yes, absolutely.
Do you?
Yes, I do. In my particular case, I was so anxious to get out, and in retrospect, it led to a lot of wonderful opportunities. So I wouldn't change it at all.
Tell me the name, I said it the wrong way.
What's that? Oh, the school?
Academy of...
The American Academy of Dramatic Arts,
Oh.
West. There's also the school in New York, which
Okay,
is
well, I
the
cut it
original.
down a little
That's
bit.
okay, we know what you're talking about.
The thing is, you did all that, you went on the stage, you started acting. One of the things that I want to get to right away,
Sure.
because it's really exciting, is that you directed Down South.
Yes.
I have this little thing that
Yeah.
tell us a
The
little
little
bit
thing.
about it.
Down South is a sex farce. Very, very, very funny show set against the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962. A suburban neighborhood that goes awry under the fear of impending danger. And it's what shakes up the household of the protagonist and her husband and their neighbors.
Ah,
It's very funny, and it ran here in LA and is now currently running off Broadway at the Rattlestick Theater in New York.
now tell me
In
how
the
that
Village.
works. Tell me how that works. You directed it here.
Yes,
And obviously, did you direct, I mean, you should have directed it in New York.
and I
did
did.
you?
Yes, I did.
And how does it work? Do you go back and direct it and then come back and forth? Or
Yes.
do you have to stay there? What happens?
No, I stayed for about a month and a half, putting it up, remounting the show. It was a different space, so it just meant some restaging.
That's what I wonder. You move
Yeah.
things around, shorten them.
Yeah, exactly. And I was able to play a little bit with the ending of the show and moments of the show that didn't necessarily work in LA.
Oh,
Now-
so you always have a new vision when you're doing things like this, when you're directing?
Well, when you get an opportunity, which is great like this, to be able to remount it, especially in New York. Now, a sidebar, in New York, it's very bad news to go into the city saying that you have an LA hit. There's that.
They don't like that?
They don't like it. They tend to, then they sit back and they say, okay, prove it. You know,
Ah.
it's,
Does that tee you off a little bit?
well, no, it's just you have to get smart about marketing. We didn't tell a soul in our press packets to the reviewers
played?
that it had already ran in LA.
Is that? Oh,
Yeah,
that's
that-
a good...
And now after we got all the reviews, which have been terrific for the show, now we're able to say, okay, we ran in LA and here's our quotes from LA. So,
Oh, and so then you throw those out.
Yeah.
And then you have good quotes from both places,
Exactly.
and it's just all a good mix.
exactly. And the
That was a
audiences are loving it.
comedy.
This is a comedy, as
What
I say,
about
it's still running.
House of Blue Leaves, which you directed?
Right, which is one of my favorite plays.
Not a
Are you
comedy.
familiar? Well,
Is it
a
John
black,
Guare?
John Guare, absolutely. A black comedy.
Y-
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful piece of theater.
And then Poets Garden.
Poets Garden, I did the workshop of.
What is that?
Good memory.
What was that?
Good. About Vincent van Gogh.
Oh, I saw that.
Okay, you saw that. I did the
I
workshop for the show.
I just wanted to make sure that it was the same one.
Yes,
it was
a
Van
musical.
Gogh in
Van
south
Gogh
of
and
France.
Gauguin,
Uh-huh.
and the woman that comes between them. Yeah, interesting work. Interesting work.
That was a musical.
A musical.
Okay, so that was different. Grease, another musical.
Grease, yeah, Grease.
And what'd you do in that?
Directed it.
And did you
Directed
change
and choreographed.
it? Did you change it?
I would say I changed it in that I tried to stay true to my original vision of the show from the 70s.
That you remembered?
That I remembered. I was a groupie of the show, of the national tour in '73.
But you weren't in it.
No. Well, I did it for a short time, but I thought you were referring to the production I directed.
But no, not the production you drew. Were you in it before?
Yes, I was. I played Danny Zuko.
Oh, you did? So you played
Years
a
ago.
biggie then.
Yeah.
A big role.
Yeah. Oh, sure. As an actor, when I left the school, I ended up I was a Broadway brat for a while. I replaced Terrence V. Mann as Rum Tum Tugger in the Broadway company of Cats.
That has to be the best. I love Rum Tum Tugger. I saw Cats about 50 times. I saw Cats the last month.
Maybe I danced with you. Oh, the last month it ran here?
Before it closed.
Okay, because I thought maybe we danced together in the house.
No, I saw it in Japan.
Right.
I saw it in London. I saw it in New York a couple times.
Wow,
I mean,
you are a fan.
Every time she sang that song, I would cry.
Yeah.
No matter who sang it.
I worked with Laurie Beachman, who I think was the best.
And Betty Buckley when she sang it.
Amazing.
I swear, there's something about it. The lights go down.
I know, it's special. It was special.
And you feel so sorry for this poor cat.
I know. It was an amazing work.
I bet you just had a great time.
I had the wonderful opportunity of being in the show, and I would say before everyone started making fun of it. It was groundbreaking theater.
I thought it was great.
Because in the early '80s when it opened, they had not been playing with environmental theater at that point.
You mean where it's all open and people are moving? Yeah, all through the house.
Trevor Nunn, who is one of my greatest teachers. I worked with him on several shows as an actor, and he's influenced so much of my work as a director.
Sure, the cats were running up and down the aisle along the edges, but same thing with Lion King, which is how many, 20 years later?
Yeah, more.
15 years later, something like that. In 1994, you got a LA Weekly Best Director of a comedy?
Yes.
What was that?
For Psycho Beach Party.
Oh, tell us about that.
Well, are you
and you got drama award.
Yeah, Drama Log Awards.
Yeah.
Your memory is so good.
Oh, thank you.
You're good, Joel.
No. But Charles Bush.
Charles Bush, who
the best.
I'm a huge fan.
Me too.
I went to see it in its second night in previews in New York. It was '87. And I went backstage and I heard myself, this is before I was directing, and I said, I'm going to be the man responsible for producing and directing the LA version of this show.
This is in your head?
In my head. And and it came out.
Ooh.
And I remember thinking, why am I saying that?
And did he hear you?
And he heard me. And then I wrote him and I said, may I do a workshop of the show, videotape it to prove to you that I'm your man, which I did.
Is he brilliant?
He's brilliant. And he's finally getting his due. I mean, he always has
the
been recognized,
wife.
but with the success of that.
That's so good.
He's one of the smartest men in theater.
I always think that he wrote those roles for himself and that he should be in there playing
He will.
them.
He'll do the film.
He'll do the film. Do the Elogist Wife. I actually interviewed him here when he was in West Hollywood. At
He's
the
delightful.
Theater. He's wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, back to you. You've directed stage variety shows, so to speak, or one-person shows.
Sure.
Something about Frederick Lowe and John Raitt was in it.
Yes. Oh, who's wonderful. Talk about stories.
Well, wait a minute. How does somebody your age direct John Raitt?
A miracle. And,
I mean, how do you make him
lovely
move? Does he listen to you?
Yes, he did. Yeah, the first day we kind of looked at each other and he sized me up and he asked me some questions and I think he realized I knew what I was doing. And he's delightful.
Then he trusted you.
He trusted me. And it was a wonderful experience in Palm Springs and he's a great guy. Strong as an ox still.
Wonderful performer.
Man, wonderful performer.
Did you take singing lessons? Did you ever?
I did. You know, I have to say I was maybe it goes back to leaving school. I was always anxious. I learned. You know how I learned? I kept leaving the lessons because there would be an audition, and I would cancel out on my class and go to. You know, I learned by doing, I think.
But did you sing in cast? Well,
yes,
ensemble.
Well, no. Rum Tugger was more of a singing role.
He did sing.
Yes.
Okay, and what about?
And then I did
Les Miserables.
I did Les Mis for about a year. I did the original First National Tour.
So you had to sing.
I sang. I stood by for Javert at the Kennedy Center. And,
you did?
Yes, and the Schubert in Boston.
Oh, I love the Schubert.
That was an amazing
I love Boston because I think they have
great
great theater too, and you just have to be there, always seeing what's going on. So you did that? That was great.
Did
and
that,
you
and
did?
then I did Sunset Boulevard.
I know.
Oh, darling.
What did you do
You'd
with
be a
that?
great Norma.
Oh, I am the diva.
Somebody get her a turban.
What did
That
you
was a
do
trip.
in Sunset?
That was after I had left acting, and I was directing Psycho Beach at the time. It was in its 4th month. And they called me and asked if I wanted to be a part of the LA company. I said, thank you so much, but I'm not able to. I'm now directing, and I'm busy.
Oh,
They
don't
called-
do that. We want you to act.
Well, and then they called me back a week later, and they said, are you sure? I was very blessed to have that kind of relationship with them. And I thought, well, I could finance more marketing for Psycho. Sure, I'll do it. The best experience by far. And I had a small role. I was a member of the ensemble.
Oh,
so there was
so-
no pressure. I didn't have to. As
What
an actor,
theater?
the Schubert Theater, and then I ended up going to Broadway.
Oh, you did do it.
I did the first 11 months on Broadway.
You did that long? You spent a
Yeah.
year there doing that?
I spent it, yeah.
Well, like the kids who were talking?
Yes, and
mean,
I
that
played
group that-
I played the choreographer. You wouldn't remember. You only remember Glenn Close as you should.
But I mean, it's when he goes to be with his friends.
Right, I
One
was
of
in that
those kids-
scene,
yeah.
and in the Paramount, I did a spot.
I see.
It was amazing. Of course, we lived through the whole experience through, the mounting the show, building the show here in LA. Then, of course,
Oh,
the Faye
sure.
Dunaway coming in right before we closed here.
Oh, so
I-
you
I
really
survived that.
You really went through
Yes.
Sunset Boulevard
Absolutely.
from the beginning.
It was an amazing experience. And Close was
You
great
live
to
here.
work with.
You
I
live here. What do you do with your apartment? How do you find a place to live in New York when you do these things?
As an actor, I was always lucky. I was always fortunate to find something available. And when I go back to work on Down South, I'm supplied a place to stay.
Oh, they'll
Yeah.
find you a place.
Yeah,
And what do
yeah.
you do with your place here?
Well, that's tricky.
I mean, gone
Sometimes
for a year.
I'm lucky. Well, when I was doing that, actually one time for 6 months, I had just got a cat, and he was about a year old. And I had one choice in which to leave him with a girlfriend and she said, but he couldn't go outside. And
Oh,
this cat was
so-
already used to being outside. My place stood empty with my cat living there.
Oh,
My
so-
brother would come in and feed him.
Oh, that's
My
good.
brother would say he'd come in one night and 5 cats would scram. My cat would have cat parties.
Oh, it was having parties without you knowing about it.
Yes.
Here we go. One of the current things that you're doing is There's No Place Like Hollywood.
Yes.
The musical.
The musical.
And?
On Hollywood Boulevard at the Stella Adler Theater.
Oh, yes, perfect.
It is perfect. It's right next to Grauman's Chinese, which is where the show takes place.
Oh, so tell us a little bit about the show.
It's wild.
And I'm going to show.
Oh,
Will
yeah.
this help if I show this
This is a
first?
shot, sure. Is it on?
Uh-huh.
That's Clay Atkins as Carmen Miranda.
Oh, this is Clay?
This is Clay.
Mr. Clay?
Mr. Clay Atkins. Now you have to understand, this actor plays Carmen Miranda, then does a dead-on Elvis Presley imitation, plays Charlie Chaplin like you've never seen before.
Did
It's
you
in a-
write any of this?
No, I did not. Dan
Oh.
Berkowitz and Shirley Hillard
Oh, right.
wrote the book. And Wayne Moore wrote the music and lyrics, beautiful music.
And this?
Amy Collette is Marilyn Monroe, as you've never seen her, a haunting version, also sung by Jeff Griggs as James Dean. A very bittersweet, haunting song about being careful what you wish for.
Oh, exactly.
Two legends feeling a little bittersweet about their experience.
James Dean and Marilyn singing together?
Singing together about how tough it was to be an icon.
How long does the show run, time-wise?
We run, it's an hour and 20 minutes.
So
no
no
intermission.
intermission.
It's fast and furious. I can liken it to Beach Blanket Babylon in San Francisco.
Now, I know that very
Oh,
well,
then you'll-
Steve.
Yeah.
Oh, the old
I know.
Steve, sweet Steve.
Yeah.
Do you have to be there every night?
I try to be there often. When I'm in town, I try to check in quite a bit.
I mean, do people forget their dance numbers or how to move on stage?
No,
and
but-
they say, let's call Rick?
No, but it's a matter of when you're working with so many, it's 9 actors, everyone so talented, so completely talented. When you're working with that kind of talent in a show in LA, they often get work outside the show. So we're forever working a new talent, which
you
are just
are.
as talented. So I'm often checking, and I have an assistant choreographer, Kevin Crawford, who's terrific, who when I'm away, maintains the show.
But then if someone new's coming in, you have to teach them the whole new thing,
Yes.
right?
It's endless.
It's endless.
It's almost easier to hire non-talent. That way, nobody ever leaves, but I would never do that.
Our show has ended, though. It's not endless. Rick, thank you so much for
Great
being with
pleasure.
us today.
It was delightful.
It's so good to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
And thank you for watching the Joan Quinn Profiles today. We'll see you next time. And keep writing to 777 South Figueroa, 44th floor, 917, Los Angeles. See you next time.